This question right here is something that any and everyone who has stumbled upon the law of assumption or law of attraction or intentional creation in any way will eventually experience or has experienced or will periodically experience, because manifesting is not a linear process, or as I like to say, intentionally creating is not a linear process. So this person says, can you tell me how in the world I'm supposed to stop thinking about the past, especially if it's negative? I know I shouldn't say this, but it seems so impossible. Does it just take practice? Are there any tips? I got you. First off, thank you for your question. It's a very common question, as I mentioned before. It's something that we all will encounter from time to time. And I think it's also a misconception that can be addressed in this video as it relates to your question. So, that misconception is that you have to stop thinking about the past. There's this tricky thing that our brains do and how they function. What you resist persists. When you look at something and you say, I don't want this thing, your brain doesn't know the difference between whether or not you want it or you don't want it. It just knows this is what you're focusing on. When you tell it to stop doing something or don't do something, the subconscious mind doesn't know yes or no. It just knows where your attention goes. One of the lessons I'm reminded of is Neville Goddard's ladder technique. And if you know anything about this, then you'll recall some of the details go a little something like Neville gave his students an assignment. He told them to go home and to write on a piece of paper multiple times throughout the day, I will not climb a ladder. I will not climb a ladder. I will not climb a ladder. He then told them, before they go to bed, to imagine that they climbed a ladder. This assignment had nothing to do with the ladder, but it had everything to do with Neville having his students prove to themselves how their minds work. Students that actually took the assignment seriously came back to Neville and told them of how they climbed a ladder, even though they were consciously trying not to. So a lot of times you'll hear people talk about not focusing on the past, but what they're really trying to get you to do is learn how to shift your awareness. So number one, you don't want to continue to tell yourself to stop thinking about the past, because you're naturally going to think about the past. That's just the way we're wired. And the way around it is this. So you know that saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Well, I tend to use that from time to time, especially when it's something that I can't stop myself from thinking about. Instead of telling myself not to think the thought, especially if it's emotionally charged and it's likely that I'm probably going to think about it for a little bit, I tell myself that it has a different meaning than what I thought it meant. Instead of calling it something negative, call it something that you use as wisdom. Every single moment is a new moment, so you're never going to be that same you again. And because of that, you can use the past as wisdom, good or bad. So give it a different meaning. Have a new relationship with that past of yours. Because if you're not going to stop thinking about it, at least shift what you make it mean. To take it further, instead of telling yourself that this past of yours somehow prevents you from being that version of yourself that you want to be, let it mean that this past of yours is going to enhance that version of you that you want to be. You've learned so many positive things about yourself from that past. You've grown so much since then that you can never be that version of you again to experience those things in that same way. By doing this, you're giving your body a taste of safety in this moment. Your body is associating your past with negativity, and so that can wreck your nervous system the more you frequent it and you keep experiencing the same emotions about it over and over again. But if you build a new neural synapses in your brain in association with that past by telling yourself that, you know, I'm growing from this past. I've grown from this past. I'm no longer in that past reality, and there's so much that's happened since then that I've gained so much wisdom from this past that even if there were negative things that have happened from it, you know, there was something that you can take away from those experiences that can be beneficial to yourself and or other people and or to your future self. So this is creating a new relationship of safety with that past so that you're not resisting the past, so it doesn't have to continue to persist in your present and into your future. To the second half of your question, does it just take practice? As with anything new, it's going to take practice. This is how we learn as humans. Repetition is the key foundation of all learning. So, yes, it will take practice because you want to get your mind and your body in alignment with feeling safe that even if you do return to thinking about the past, you don't feel that it's a threat to you in this present or that it's a threat to your future. And so you can feel safe in your body, you can feel safe in your mind, even when you think about it, that you don't have to be resistant towards it. That thought of the past can coexist with you in this moment, and you don't have to see it as a threat to anything. As Neville Goddard used to say, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. We persist in it. They may not even be true in the moment, but we persist in it. And so our persistence in that assumption is what eventually leads to it hardening into fact.